Welcome back to Popcorn Recap. In today's video, we are going to review the events of the 2000 sci-fi horror film called Hollow Man. The movie starts with a lab rat being caged. Suddenly, an unseen force bounces on it and devours it. While working on the chemical formula, Sebastian runs a simulation that fails. He watches while his neighbor undresses, then feels let down when she shuts the curtain. A few moments later, he has an idea and revises the chemical formula, triggering a new simulation. The formula becomes stable and Sebastian is successful. In order to inform Linda of the resolution, Sebastian gives her a call. He sees a man lying in her bed and she instructs him to mind his own business. He reveals to Linda that he has found the chemical formula for reversion. She thinks it's remarkable that he figured it out on the spot. Earlier that day, Sebastian goes to the lab, which is located in a fortified enclosure. To enter the elevator, he scans his fingerprint and enters a passcode he has already set. Only by using thermal imaging can these otherwise invisible creatures be spotted within the laboratory. An invisible gorilla called Isabel greets Matt, and he pets an orangutan. All the animals are scared when she jumps in the cage. Matt puts on infrared goggles to view her and soothes the beast down. When he goes inside to sedate her, she bites him then runs away. Ouch! With him hot on her trail, Matt follows her around the lab and eventually bumps into Sebastian, who he informs that the animal has been more aggressive lately. Overextended invisibility gives a negative psychological effect on Isabel. With a tranquilizer pistol in hand, Sebastian challenges Matt to a race to see who can get to her first. The competitive men locate the animal and force her into a corner. Sarah charges at them, arguing with Sebastian over whether or not to inject the serum into Isabel. Although he believes it will be efficient, she deems it immoral. But work is work, and Sebastian is all about work. Later, while she prepares the serum, Linda assures Sebastian that it won't be long now. They are relieved to see the gorilla's body materialize. Unfortunately, there is a rapid deterioration in her condition, culminating in a cardiac arrest. When Isabel's heart stops, Linda uses a defibrillator to shock her back to life. She repeats the process many times to get her blood pumping normally again. As Isabel's equilibrium improves, more and more of her body will come into view. They are told by technology that her quantum fingerprints are now steady. Sarah is certain that everything will turn out well. As a result of their premature success, they are eating out to celebrate. After that, Linda and Sebastian have a serious conversation during which he expresses his desire to reconcile with Linda. He returns to the laboratory to see how Isabel is doing. In addition, he notices an invisible dog, whom he pets and inquires as to what it's like to be invisible. Some months later, Sebastian submits their results to a Pentagon commission. Kramer warns that time is of the essence, and that he will abandon the project if they are unable to provide results. He argues with Linda and Matt, but Sebastian explains why they shouldn't tell anybody about their findings. Their entire project would have been taken over by the Pentagon. He thinks they should skip on to human trials and do it on their own without permission. Later, they notify the team about the strategy and none of them likes it. Sebastian attempts to convince them, but Sarah can't believe the committee accepted it. Sebastian offers his body to be experimented on. Matt warns Sebastian on the day of the operation that he still has time to change his mind. They enter the room and place Sebastian on the bed, then they hook up an IV drip and keep him in check. He reports feeling a touch on edge and an increase in his pulse rate. Frank and Janice quarrel over who'll receive his Porsche if he dies. Since Sebastian prefers to administer the shot personally, they irradiate the serum and bring it over to him, implying that nobody else is at fault if things go wrong. In the absence of immediate physical change to his body, everyone begins to panic. Sebastian then starts having convulsions, and his body gradually becomes invisible. In Sebastian's words, the pain is far worse than he anticipated. Frank reveals that he's about to have a seizure. His vitals are becoming increasingly irregular as he fades into obscurity. After Sebastian gets up and heads to the mirror, the other two join him there. As soon as he gets his hands on them, he begins playing pranks on everyone until Frank puts on some goggles. Matt and Linda carry him back to his room and switch on the observation monitor. The first shift will be her responsibility, then Carter will follow. Sarah collects the final screen and powers down the system. She nods off, and Sebastian comes sauntering into the lab and into the observation room. He starts touching her while she sleeps. Maybe invisibility makes your desire stronger as others won't see you doing the deeds. Hopefully, teenage boys won't have this kind of power. Sarah wakes up and checks the monitors to see whether he's still inside, but as soon as she does, she realizes that he's not there. He swivels around and climbs back into bed. She relays the story to Linda the next day, but she is still uncertain as to the veracity of the event. When Frank and Janice enter the lab, she decides to use the restroom and has the uneasy feeling that someone is following her. so she dons the thermal goggles before going to the ladies' room. The crew speaks about Sebastian and the things he may do now that he's invisible. It appears like all of them agree that he won't be up to anything good. Before they even leave the kitchen, a chair that had been facing the opposite direction suddenly flips around. He was listening to them all along. On that particular evening, Linda will be working the lab shift. While she is busy making the serum, Sebastian starts to distract her by rearranging her drink in the laboratory setting. He gives her a massage and then asks her if she's curious to see what it's like to make love to an invisible man. She obviously declines because that would be super weird. Matt and Carter make the serum to bring him back the next day, and Linda sprays him with it to expose his veins by exposing his arm. He receives an injection of the serum, and the results mirror those seen in Isabel. As more of his internal organs begin to form, he notices that something is wrong and expresses his concern. His heart rate and blood pressure start fluctuating. Sebastian struggles out, so the guys cuff him again. He powerfully shoves Carter away and kicks Matt off of himself before rising to his feet. The other guys intubate Sebastian. They detect a heartbeat, but as they try to revive him, he suddenly vanishes. When Sebastian finally awakens, Linda tells him his life is in the balance. He claims the committee has no immediate need to hear the details. They create a synthetic mask for him because he'll be in that condition for some time. The mask is scary and unfashionable, but it'll do. Sebastian jumps inside and drives out as the police guard worries about his car. He terrifies two kids at a signal. Sebastian goes home to gather a few possessions for the lab. His neighbor is stripping again when he looks over. Sebastian visits his half-naked neighbor. She hears the doorbell again and checks the outside, allowing Sebastian to enter. The invisible Sebastian takes advantage of his neighbor. Meanwhile, Linda searches his home and sees Sebastian's hollow mask. Everyone is preparing to search the lab for him. Sebastian shocks them by returning from his house. Sebastian says he's the project leader and has the ultimate say on things. Linda says she'll report him to the committee if he departs without authorization. Linda and Matt are concerned about Sebastian's invisibility. The next day, Carter tests Sebastian and discusses his actions. Sebastian lies to cover up his misdeeds. Sebastian undresses Linda that night. Luckily, the phone rings, waking her from her nightmare. Matt says he's figured out the serum's formula after some contemplation. The crew is briefed in the lab. Sebastian explodes in rage after a simulation fails 95% and he escapes. Linda hunts him down and accuses him of hurting Matt with his treatment. With a few props and some equipment, he sets up the camera to make it appear as though he is present. And then he sneaks into Linda's place and watches her. Linda phones the lab to ask whether Sebastian is there after Matt fails to see anything. On the hidden camera, Frank spots him. As for Sebastian, he's fuming and furious over Linda back in the lab. When the dog starts barking, it just gets worse. So he walks to its cage and he ruthfully kills the poor dog. After checking the surveillance footage, they see that he spent the whole night in bed. The next time we see Linda, she's in her room and she's sure Sebastian is there. She tells him he's not funny and covers the spot where she believes he is standing with a blanket. She bolts from her residence and gets in her car because she is terrified. Matt assures her that the monitor shows Sebastian is sound sleeping, but she insists on checking on him nonetheless. She notices that he is no longer there and deduces that he must have tampered with the camera. As Linda explains to the group, both she and Matt will be the ones to shoulder the blame when they go before the committee. Sebastian is there and paying attention to their conversation. As he sends Linda and Matt out the door, Kramer assures them that he will contact everyone who needs to know what's going on. When Kramer tries to make the call, he discovers that his connection is broken. When he hears the front door open, he heads out to the yard. In the haze of his pipe, Sebastian suddenly materializes, pulls him into the water, and drowns him. Before Kramer's wife can come down to check on him, Sebastian has already left the pool. As Kramer hasn't returned their call, Linda decides to give him a ring. She learns that Kramer is dead. Whenever Linda dials a number for one of the generals, the call disconnects. When Matt examines the phone, he realizes there is no connection to the outside world. Frank inspects the surveillance equipment, while Matt warns that it may be many days before to have someone go looking for them and find them. Janice heads out and is shot by the ruthless Sebastian. Sebastian tells her he can't risk being turned in since he likes being in charge. After Linda realizes that Janice is missing, everyone sprints off in search of her. Her corpse was found in a storage container. The crew activates the motion sensors and spots him on the screen. While the others keep an eye out, Matt and Carter go look for him. Sebastian takes Carter, and when Matt turns around, he begins to shoot, striking one of the conduits. Because the mist allows him to see Sebastian, he fires at him once again. He throws Carter to the ground, severely injuring him. When Linda informs Matt that Sebastian is present, he fires his pipes once more to confirm, but Sebastian gets away and traps Matt in the tunnel. When Sarah hears Sebastian enter, she heads to the lab to retrieve blood samples. She then waits a few moments till the blood soaks into the ground so she can see Sebastian's movements. When he fails to materialize, she takes the remaining packs and exits through the opposite door. She breaks the seal and dumps it all over him, but he still manages to shoot her down. As Carter is passing away, Linda and Matt simultaneously locate Frank. When Frank turns his back, Sebastian kills him. He also injures Matt before locking the two of them in the refrigerator. When Matt passes out, Linda tries to escape the freezer. Meanwhile, Sebastian is stocking up on explosives for the laboratory. To test his concoction, he mixes it and launches it like a grenade as if he's some newbie terrorist. When Linda uses the defibrillator to make a magnet, she uses the door's lever to unlock the door. To warm Matt up, she takes him outdoors and builds a fire. On his way inside the elevator, Linda ambushes him and sets him ablaze. When Linda's petrol tank leaks, Sebastian manages to get away. He attacks her in secret and tries to murder her by beating her severely. All of a sudden, Matt is magically there to knock him out, but Sebastian is still alive and he launches another attack, only to electrocute himself in the process. The explosive detonates and the lift shoots up the shaft at incredible speed. They manage to get out in time. Sebastian snatches Linda and kisses her. Yikes. Sebastian really is a bad weed that can't get killed easily. She grabs the cord and pulls it away from him. Linda gets on top of Matt while Sebastian tumbles into the fire. Both of them make it out of the laboratory alive.